Alright, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, Mr. Wesley.
Good evening, Mr. Aaron.
Bro, we was talking before this recording, and we were already talking about a lot of different things. But we basically touched on the fact that you had told me previous weeks ago that you believed that everything exists, that everything is a possibility, and I'm still confused about that because even though you had mentioned Schrodinger's cat,
Schrodinger's.
I'm still quite confused about that because, I mean, if you had believed that everything exists, then wouldn't you also believe that nothing exists, or the possibility of? Because if you believe in everything, you also believe in nothing.
That's a good paradox. Holy shit, you made me think again. I mean, but technically, yes. Think about it like this. I previously said that the Schrodinger's cat, or is the ideology, not necessarily an ideology, but the thought or the experiment of something existing, but at the same time not existing, only until you view it, or something else views it, or that experiment. I'm not saying necessarily that I don't believe it because I don't view it. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like there's a possibility it does exist, but it doesn't exist at the same time. Yes, it's a paradox of my own, I guess, being, but there's been like a lot of kind of like this is kind of controversial in a way, but over time, history has been rewritten, specifically the Bible and everything. It's been rewritten and accustomed to the era of that time. There's been many times, and it's been recorded because translated throughout different languages. One specific sentence doesn't belong there, and it only applied to the society during that time. While in another translation, there was another. Stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Like yes.
I was listening to, I forgot who said this, but I think it was. Oh yeah, I was listening to a stand-up, and he kind of touched Ricky Gervais. You know Ricky Gervais, right? You watch The Office?
No, I hate The Office.
I haven't watched it either,
It's
but I know
so
he's
boring.
famous for that. But basically, he was saying how, I think it was Seneca or Socrates. He said that Socrates said that popularity is the perfume of righteousness. I think it basically meant that you have to be, the only reason why you're famous is because you're doing good works. The most famous man during the time of the Renaissance was Leonardo da Vinci for all of his good works, of his inventions, stuff like that. And then Isaac Newton was the most famous man of his time. But now you can't really say that in today's time because you can get famous for basically anything now, even if you're doing some crazy stuff. And I kind of agree with you on that sense, where people back then, they said things that fit exactly when they were existing. But also, in a sense, I also believe that some things, or the majority of things, are applicable even if you are not living within the time or the era that they had uttered their phrases.
Actually, you're right. Yeah, I believe that as well. Because think about it, we've always used like the Ten Commandments or something like that, or throughout history, we've always looked back onto it and we're like, yes, this can still apply to our current day, and we still look back on it and we still follow it, which is okay. It's reasonable. But over time, things change. Over time, history is lost. That's another thing that I remember. I had a discussion with what's his name, Kenneth, about how we can pretty much change history, not necessarily go back in time, but we can change history based on what we teach. Because think about it, in the next couple hundred years, you see how we're going, what's happening right now, the whole protests, almost going into World War III and shit like that, pretty much in the next couple years, if we write the history down, of course it's going to be written down, but what if we have like a totalitarian government, or something changes, the government gets, they decide what they're going to teach and stuff like that. In the future, we're going to forget all about that, and nobody's going to back it up. Get what I mean? Like,
You talking about some 1984 type thing?
not really, because
You know 1984 though, right? The
you mean the
novel?
Tiananmen Square?
No, the novel.
No, I haven't read it.
Basically, it was what you're talking about, how everything was totalitarian, and there had these offices called the thought police, where you cannot think for yourself. You have to think within the boundaries of what the government tells you you can think. Kind of like Fahrenheit 451, but I think it's even more gruesome.
I guess, but like, I'm mostly just talking about or discussing about the whole idea of us pretty much changing history or changing the past. Not necessarily through time travel, that's a different whole story, but through our modern day, minds. Because you could say, how are we so sure that, I guess, how are we so sure the world, okay, what happened, like, let's say on the year 80,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know, we don't have any records or anything, but if we do have a record and stuff like that, we can alter it, but nobody can back it up saying like, oh, this happened and stuff like that, because nobody was alive during that time who's modern here.
Well, what about empirical evidences such as first-hand experiences and first-hand literature works, such as the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of Rome in, I forgot which years, but I think it was like 150 AD, and that was his experiences, and that was his journal, and that was backed up by researchers such as archaeologists and people who are profound historians.
Exactly. Still proves my point, because if it weren't for them, either one of them could have rewritten history. They could have rewritten everything. The information could have been there, or I guess kind of, this is mostly like a theory in a sense. Like, let's say you find, like, let's say this historian finds specific evidence or some form of information that is very crucial on finding, let's say, something that's hidden, something that's been locked away that they don't want to find, that the people who originally locked it up didn't want other people to find it. Like, they could rewrite it, say it's either a hoax or it never existed in the first place and stuff like that, kind of like rewriting things. We only know the knowledge that we know right as of right now based on what other people told us and what's written in the books, and if it weren't for that, we pretty much would be like dumb. We wouldn't have any, how do you even say it? How do you say it in Spanish? Like in English, conocimiento? No.
You're asking me like I'm Spanish.
I don't know, bro. I thought you would know.
But I also did want to talk about, because you did touch on the protests. How did you feel about the whole George Floyd thing, bro? Since it's still fairly recent, and the whole protest thing about the whole looting thing and just chaos running amok, bro. How do you feel about this? What are your thoughts on that?
It's very, very controversial, and honestly, saying the wrong things could get you oof.
Doesn't matter.
But pretty much, it really don't matter. Yeah, pretty much, I was like, this is like, it's not the right way to go at all. Like, there's other ways, but yes, it's understandable that, after so long, people will want to riot and everything, but like, affecting local businesses that they say they could barely even go on with what they have, and with the whole pandemic that was happening on top of that, like, I think it built too much pressure to the point where it exploded, which of course caused the riots and everything. But it was just bad at that point. Like,
I had seen a TikTok video where this guy was saying, so murder is okay if it is the result of property damage, but property damage isn't okay if it's the result of a murder. You get what it's saying? Because if you have if you commit, say, a felony that involves property damage, murder is okay because of self-defense. But in terms of murder, in terms of George Floyd and the whole rioting and the looting, they were basically saying that if murder was okay in terms of property damage, then property damage would also then be okay as a result of the murder of George Floyd. And I'm just like, you are oversimplifying such a profound topic and the subject of the case of George Floyd. And then other people started resharing that, like, oh, this is right, this is so true. And I'm like, think common sense has to play a part in some sense, because
I think everybody's lost common sense.
it's these things that are just because it's popular, just because it makes sense in a way, doesn't mean it's true. All you have to do is think about it, and then these theories would just dissolve right in your hands. I mean, I was watching also this I think I need to slow down in the consumption of media, because I was I was also watching this interview. You familiar with Milo Yiannopoulos?
Can't say so. I don't know.
He's basically a political commentator, and he was on a debate I believe this was a panel in CNN, and he was talking to this feminist, and the feminist basically said the topic was basically predicated upon unrealistic mannequins, because you know how all mannequins basically are size 0 models who are like 6 feet and unrealistic quote unquote bodies. And the feminist was basically saying, well, we need more realistic bodies, and we need plus size models as mannequins, because I want to see these clothes on me. And then Milo was just like, you can definitely see them on yourselves if you would try it on yourself. And he was basically applying common sense. Well, these retailers want the best case scenario wherein you need these size 0 models, because this is what the people want to see, and it's a good marketing strategy. And then he was talking about lifestyle and health. It's because we don't need to glorify people who are unhealthy, and we need to glorify hard work, because it's really hard to have the perfect quote-unquote body. And then the feminist, was just like, well, lifestyle isn't how you look, it's how you live your life. And I'm like, what? Did you even hear yourself when you said those words? She said, and I repeat, lifestyle isn't how you look, it's how you live your life. Oh my gosh, bro. And if you think about it,
paradox right there.
If you really think about it, how you live your life is literally how you look. If you look like you have acne, it may be in part genetics, but majority of it is how you sleep, it's how you take care of yourself, it's how you wash your face, it's what you eat. And it's the same thing with weight. It's how you eat, it's how you live your life. And it's like anybody can live a healthy lifestyle. It's just that nobody really takes it.
Actually, that's very good thing you mentioned that, because it's kind of like one of these things where, I don't know, I'm just kind of weird like this, but I would be hearing motivational speeches and stuff like that whenever I would feel down. And then during these speeches, and I can actually it's because it's true. You're not, if you want something, you want to change the way you look, change your lifestyle and everything, you have to get up and do it. The only reason you're not getting your own lifestyle or your dreams and everything is because you're stopping yourself. You're lazy. It's kind of like saying lies sound best to the to the one saying it, you know, like you're lying to yourself. You find different ways to validate your laziness and validate every downfall that you have, and then you don't better yourself, you know. Because for me, my whole goal is to become the best version of myself. In order to do that, I know my flaws, and there's some flaws that I can't, you know, help, like my height. I can't make myself taller. It's genetics, but you know, I can still pull. I can still work on other stuff, you know. So like, I want to become the best version of myself. In order to do that, you know, I made a whole list. What do I need to do? You know, I need to eat better. I need to sleep earlier. I need to wake up earlier. Go to the gym. Read books. You know, stuff like this. Now, but people who don't actually, they're lazy, and that they keep on complaining about, like, oh, you know, I wanna see change, but they don't work towards it. It's kind of like, it's hypocrisy at that point, you know. They blame others for their injustice when they don't even want to work their asses off. They don't want to pick up a pen. They don't want to go for a run. They don't want to go to the gym. They find excuses only to validate their laziness, pretty much.
That's the same problem where I see these good thing you mentioned motivational talks. It's kind of like a lot of the things, well, not a lot, but some of the things I be reading and listening on YouTube and watching the videos is like, you're okay how you are. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm depressed. Well, speaking of a different perspective, but I'm depressed. I'm sad. My relationship with my parents, my relationship with my friends are running amok, and you're saying I'm okay how I am. Well, then what's the point of living? It's like, what's the point of even striving if I'm okay how I am? And that's literally also because I had also seen, jeez, I need to slow down on the media consumption, because I was watching this clip of Joe Rogan, and I think it was some other else. It was on plus size models. There was this, I think it was Cosmopolitan, who had featured this woman who was clearly morbidly obese, and they were saying that, oh, we're breaking boundaries, we are changing the way people see beauty. And then already the first thing that came to mind was like, why are we glorifying unhealthy habits? It's like, obviously, even if you wanted to portray beauty in this sort of manner, like, you have any idea how much makeup you put on her? You have any idea how much airbrush you've put into this perfectly fine image? And it was just like a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of things that are just like too coddling of the human mind. It's just like, obviously people who are obese shouldn't be told that they're okay how they are. I mean, to a certain degree, yes, but ultimately, no, because then they wouldn't strive for anything other than being how they are, which is completely unhealthy.
I agree, because honestly, there's been many times where they try to glorify as much as possible and they don't want to work towards it. They say, oh, I'm fine like this. I'm like, okay, mentally, sure, but like, eventually your body's gonna deteriorate, and then you're gonna start seeing a bunch of changes, and you're not gonna like it, and you're gonna blame the people for not wanting to change. You know, you glorified herself, like, let's say the obese woman, but then, you know, over time, you know, time would always eat you up pretty much, and you're gonna, you know, the one who's winning is the actual person who actually wanted to, you know, make a difference, wanted to become the best of the best, or the best version of themselves, while they just wanted to stay the same so that other can, like, I guess, see her in that way, or like see like, oh, it's okay, which is not in a way. Like, yes, I understand mental health can, like, plays another part in, like, these type of situations, but sometimes, you know, when your body says otherwise, not necessarily like in a bad way, but more of a, you know there's a flaw and you don't want to work towards it, then that's kind of like hypocrisy in that way, because then you judge others for being what you wanted to be, but you don't want to work towards it.
And it's the same way with these magazines. It's like they don't want to glorify anorexia, but obesity is okay. hello. You cannot play two sides of the coin. You cannot have one side of the coin every time you flip it. Okay, there's two sides to the coin. If you want to glorify obesity, you should also glorify anorexia, but these magazines don't want to glorify that. I've never seen a magazine issued where the front cover is an anorexic model. It's always...
I think
Was there?
I remember. No, I remember in TikTok or in social media there was this girl who was very skinny, very anorexic, and I think she had black hair, and I think it was like one of the original, I guess, profound e-girls and stuff like that. And
Oh,
every
jeez.
girl or every person was like, "Oh my God, she's so skinny, she's very anorexic." They were judging her at first, but then over time they started glorifying, and then it just became to a point where like, "Oh my God, yes, I want to look like her."
Oh my gosh,
And then
bro.
yeah, and it got to a point, I forgot her name, but it was very like trending, and it just got to a point where they had to ban her
Mm.
because there was like actual teenage girls who wanted to look like her and were like not eating, they were vomiting, they were having like these problems which affected their health. Like, yes, there's actual people who have these type of problems and they're trying to make themselves better, but because of their circumstances or their mental health, it doesn't really, it's hard for them, which it's understandable. But the more people glorify it, the more people are gonna say, "Oh, I want to be like that," or "Oh, yes, I want that,"
I think
which affects their health.
I think to a certain extent we have to stop coddling people. We need to give them something that is spot on and tell them that you're not living a healthy lifestyle, man. It's have you watched to a certain extent I kind of blame social media in a way, because have you watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
Nope, haven't even been on Netflix in a minute.
Oh, you should watch it. It's basically how it was a Netflix documentary portraying the negative effects of social media and how social media is wrecking societies. And at the intro, these experts on social behavior were asked, well, they're not necessarily, well, some of them were experts in social behavior. A lot of them were just media gurus and people who had worked in Twitter, Pinterest, and Google. And at the beginning of the Netflix documentary, the producers were asking these people, so what's the problem with social media? And they were just dumbfounded and taken aback by the question, and they couldn't give them a straight answer. But it then takes you to this profound and elongated answer, which is the documentary itself. And then by the end of it, I forgot this person's name, but he was a worker at Google, and he basically told them, social media isn't a problem. Social media isn't the problem. It's not the dilemma isn't social media itself. What's the existential crisis is the proclivity for human beings to have negative and malevolent tendencies, and the malevolent tendencies is the existential crisis, and social media has the capacity to bring that out at an expedited and such a basically a wide range, and you could basically, oh man, hold up, my mic. And the capacity for social media to express this with such a wide array of audience, that's the existential crisis. It's the ability of social media to bring these malevolent tendencies out. And that's what I think what's happening with TikTok and Instagram and things like Facebook. It's like we're canceling thoughts that we don't agree with and glorifying things that we do agree with. And in a way, it's not how humanity has evolved in a way, because we used to live in tribes, we used to live in villages, and that's how we function as human beings. We're not accustomed to absorbing all of these comments from people we don't even know. So
Ooh, that's literally something I'm writing in my whole college essay right now. Because, um, you know how, Trump is trying to ban TikTok and WeChat, and stuff like that.
uh-huh.
I'm pretty much writing that something similar to to what you just said, about the pretty much the snowflakes canceling culture and
Oh
stuff like that.
jeez. Snowflake
Yeah.
culture.
Yep. I'm pretty much saying I completely forgot. I lost my train of thought.
It's all good. But I think you were saying something about cancel culture and people who are coddled and how you were writing an essay about that.
Oh, right. Thank you. So it's like, you know, remember what happened with the whole Trump rally and shit like that, when a bunch of people wanted to cancel his whole rally, like 100, almost, apparently the numbers were 1 million people were supposed to attend his rally or about that. I don't even know. I forgot the numbers, but only like 10,000 showed up, which of course made him mad in a way. I was like, that's very bad. And there's been other cases where like specific, I guess, producers or content creators have been forced to apologize for something that they, one, never did, or two, it was an accident, or three, it's just, because a specific group didn't agree with it, it kind of messed up the whole, the whole show pretty much. And it also incorporates what the algorithm that they have. Pretty much how the internet is working right now is based on data manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's like many things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, where it's okay for them to have our data, but the moment TikTok or WeChat or any other sort
data
of
collection companies
comes in, then it's a problem. And that's literally what I'm writing as of right now, because it's like pretty much it's a big hypocrisy. It's like a big slap on the face, like it's okay for us to do it but not for you. Ever seen this meme? It's been popping over on LinkedIn and Facebook, where it's like they're in an office. It's like it's a panel. On the top, it's this very handsome guy, good-looking Chad type of guy, and then there's a girl, and the guy is heading on to the girl saying, "Oh, I like your data," and the girl falls in love. But then on the bottom panel, it's the same situation, but with this guy, it's just he's fat, chubby, ugly. Has I guess he's not considered in the society standards handsome, and the girl just like looks away and disgusted and stuff like that. And they're pretty much saying the Chad is America and the ugly guy is like China or any other country. And then I'm like, well, this is pretty much how it's working. So it's like it's fucked up that they're saying the same thing, but only the Chad can get the girl.
It's double standards too. And also in terms of personal experience, I needed to draw back from social media, because every time I have a thought, it's like I have this urge to share it with the world, so that maybe I'm clinging on to this idea of future validations, like views for validation. It's like I post maybe a thought on Instagram on my story, and then I would write out this profound short essay, and then I would get validated if I have over 100 views on my story. It's like, oh, maybe I'm doing something right. It's like, no, it's not. You're getting views. It's like I needed. And also, when I had posted the story on letting people know that I posted another video, a friend texted me. She was like, do your parents ever watch your videos? And I was like, I don't know. What do you think? Do you ever wonder what they would say to your videos? It's like, yes. And then she said, what do you think they would say? And I was like, sorry, where are you getting at? So already I was on the defensive. But what I didn't know was that after I sent that, sorry, where are you getting at? She was like, geez, I was just wondering what adults would say. So she was literally just asking me what I genuinely thought of what my parents would say or what an adult would say to my videos. She wasn't like leading on to a question where she was pressing me. So this is also what I think social media has us thinking. It's that we're interpreting these words in a different manner as to how the person who sent us intentions are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Honestly, that just happened to me not too long ago. It was like 2 days ago. I was texting this girl, and she sent me like a whole post saying, "Oh, do you notice anything different?" At the time, I didn't notice anything, only until a couple more like photos that she sent. I'm like, "Oh, did you cut your hair?" I'm like, she's like, "Yeah." And like, oh, it looks nice, you know. I'm sorry I didn't notice it earlier. This was all on text. Sorry I didn't notice it earlier, because as a guy, or like,
We don't care.
We don't care. We don't we don't look at it. We're like, oh my god, that looks amazing, or like, oh my god, let me idolize you because it looks good and stuff like that.
Jeez.
She took it the wrong way, and she said, oh, I don't need you to like it. I like it myself. I'm like, I did not say that. I did not say that at all. Where did you get this from? And then I had a whole argument with her, like, you sound so stupid right now. I did not even say that. I literally said it looks good, but I apologize that I didn't notice it, because, I don't notice those type of things,
To take that a step further, you know Friedrich Nietzsche?
Who, what?
Friedrich Nietzsche. He was one of the greatest minds of the 19th of the 19th century, latter part of the 19th century. And his work, I think this is Superman, this is Thus Spoke Zarathustra, I think, was it? It was basically the rise of the Superman. The novel basically told people that not everyone is the same. There is at least one individual within a group who is higher than the rest of the person, which is literally the reality. You can look at any individual, any group. Even in classrooms, there's always that one person who's the leader of the pack. And you can see this in nature too, with wolves and lions who's like at least one individual who is above all. And
it's the first thing. No, it's the first individual, the first entity that takes the first step forward.
Yes, and it's that one individual that gets to be at the top of the hierarchy, who is willing to take a step further and willing to undergo the hardships. And lo and behold, that work was misinterpreted after his death by Adolf Hitler. Oh jeez, bro. Bro, he took that work and misinterpreted it in a way, was like, yes, the Germans are the one who are higher than the rest of the people, so let me go and kill the Jews. And Ricky Gervais made a wonderful analogy in a comedic way of this. He made a bit about it, and then he was basically trying to have a conversation with, he was kind of like acting out how the conversation between Nietzsche and Hitler would have gone. And then it was just like, hello mate, it was just like, hello Nietzsche, and then it was like, hello Hitler, and then it was just like, I read your book, it was amazing. Oh thanks, what'd you think about it? Oh, I thought it was brilliant. Not everybody's the same. There's always that one person who's above all else. Yes, yeah, so there's above one else, not everybody's the same. Always the one person higher than the rest, kill all the Jews. It's like, what? Kill all the Jews? Everyone's not the same, so there's always people lower than you, so kill the Jews. I didn't write that. Read between the lines. And then I was just like, exactly. Sometimes things can get misinterpreted, and that was just like the extremity of that thing. It's like Nietzsche definitely did write that not everybody's the same. There's always that individual or a group that is higher than the rest. But if he would have seen Nazi Germany, he would have been appalled. But at the same time, Nazi Germany was inspired by the work of Nietzsche.
That's actually interesting, and I don't think I've heard of that, but I know something similar to like the story. And it's kind of interesting because if you really think about it, the Germans looked at Hitler as a hero or a
Yes.
savior, and it depends on what side you are or the way you interpret it. Because if you really think about it, there is no real villain. It just he thought differently, but I mean his actions said otherwise. But you know,
I think
it's just like go on.
Hitler was the embodiment of the mob thinking of Germany at the time. He played on the Germans' resentment and vengefulness because they had just lost World War One, and they were the ones who were supposed to pay everything. They were the ones who were supposed to pay for the repercussions of everything. So it left Germany appalled and just poverty stricken at the extremities. And Hitler played on that thinking, and then with that notion of all of the Germans having resentment and bitterness, he read Nietzsche's work and interpreted it in a way that would fit his resentment. Lo and behold, Nazi Germany was born.
Yep, that's pretty much how everything. If you really think about it, that's how the whole world works. Because the education system here in the United States is pretty much they teach us to like read through in between the lines and have our own personal opinions and write it down, see if it's right or it's wrong, compare it with the author's opinion. But if you really think about it,
you're not
our
giving me
opinion
both
could be
sides.
yeah, exactly. Our opinion could be extremely different from another person's opinion. It's kind of like the same thing, and it incorporates with everything, and it leads to wars and everything. Because religion, data and facts, what you believe in, science, and even science. Because there's flat earthers who believe the Earth is flat, while there's actual, people who, believe the Earth is round or hollow and stuff like that, based on the data that they're presented and what they make and their ideas and their creativity during the time, mostly based on their environment, the people they hang out with and stuff like that. It mostly is a big impact with that. It all depends on how it's opinion based. Pretty much our whole lives is opinion based, which is okay, but it then creates another problem where there's fights, there's wars, there's constant arguing, there's constant, nothing. The whole natural order is nothing will go the way you want it to be, which is understandable. It's like, I forgot where I read this, but pretty much there's a scientific theory that all natural, technically the natural law order of everything is disaster, and we as humans try to organize things and try to understand it. It's kind of the similar how you see how there's always these specific things. Let's say we leave a room for like a long time, it always becomes a disaster with like dust or other particles coming in and making it look weird, but only because we are used to looking at it at a different type of way. We don't adapt to it only when we, want to make a change. It's kind of difficult to implement right now and explain, but
I think where you're getting at is we don't necessarily see things as empirical or as objective as it is, but rather we interpret it in a way that we want to. Is that where you're getting at?
pretty much that's how everything works, honestly.
And since you touched on nobody's thinking is how they want it to be, but rather their thinking is predicated on what they're fed. And did you know that in some areas, if you type in climate change, right? You know how Google has this autofill in the search bar?
Yeah.
Depending on where your location is, it'll change. So in some cases where it's conservative, when it's conservative, people will type in climate change and the autofill would be is fake, is a hoax. And then in states where it's blue or places where conspiracy conspiracy theories arise, it'll be climate change, and then the autofill would say evidences is real, has been going on. So it doesn't matter what you want, it matters where you are, and based on the facts of your surrounding circumstances, it would autofill that and make it seem that this is what you want based on your surroundings. And that's also what Kyrie Irving had said. That's how he was fed to believe that the earth is flat, because he literally dove into the realm of YouTube, and then you know how YouTube goes, it's an endless rabbit hole, and then he jumped that rabbit hole according to what YouTube thought he wanted. And that's exactly how people, you can see this in The Social Dilemma, where they dramatize this to such a profound and dramatic type of way, where this kid, I would say he's the main protagonist, he was literally watching this one video, and based on that one video he saw, these people, or I would say the algorithm, would feed him another type of video that was like that, even though his sister literally told him that he shouldn't be watching things like this, like conspiracy theories and things of the sort. But algorithm thought, hey, he's watching this video, maybe he'd like another one, let's feed him another one. So he tapped that, and then based on that, they were feeding him more conspiracy theories, even though it's not empirically evidence based, it's not objective truth, it wasn't science driven, it's an idea based video. And then they just kept feeding it until they got arrested, and it was just like a whole conundrum.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was literally gonna talk about the algorithm. Pretty much is how, once
you are in IT though. We're in the same class. We're in computer science, but yeah, go ahead and talk about the.
I was literally about to mention, you don't even need to be an IT to understand how it works. The algorithm. This is how pretty much every tech company or every organization would buy your data from other third parties and stuff like that. And that's why there's many laws, or that's why there's many agreements saying, like, you get a specific data, the algorithm, get as much data as possible from here, send it to us, and then we'll create specific algorithms to appease or to please these users in order to, get what we want, let them buy more of our products and stuff like that. The same thing with Instagram and Facebook. You talk a discussion about, let's say you want some shoes, and out of nowhere you get an ad about shoes. You're like, whoa, okay, this is weird. They have access to your camera, they have access to your cookies, to your web. And if you want to know what cookies are, it's pretty much just cache or save data from your computer.
It's terrifying.
And
keep going.
It really is. But once you start understanding what companies or what organizations take from and guess, just get information from you, it gets scarier. Because as of right now, you could literally search up your address plus what is it, quotation marks, and then your name, and there's a possibility that your documents will pop up. This is how pen testing, or this is how hackers, or this is how even docs happens. And I haven't done docs, but I know how it works. But I've done many pen testing where you pretty much talk to a database and you ask them, or you tell the database, can I get this information? And you would write a bunch of specific, not necessarily commands, but functions to pull out a bunch of the data, and that's how hackers get your information.
What? This isn't no conspiracy theory, right? This is fact.
This is legit. This is legit. You could do it yourself. This is I've done it before, and this is DNS DNS poisoning. Or okay, no, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I'll get back to you with that, but pretty much you could infiltrate a database using different type of methods. You can inject it with a rat, aka a Trojan or stuff like that. You're taking a virus, and you have access to the whole thing. You can pretty much say you can automate a specific program to give you the information, and that's why there's many. Pretty much this is why cybersecurity is becoming a big thing now, because we've been recently, not necessarily recently, but mostly the government tries to hide it. But once these documents become declassified, we started learning new things. You know, the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
You see how we was hacked by Russia, and the whole thing was tampered with and everything.
I don't know
They
about
pretty
that. I was listening to Ben Shapiro about that. It was just like, it was all, there's no empirical evidence or objective based, fact that actually happened. But go on.
yeah. There's always the yes, it didn't happen, but yes, it did happen, because there's this book that I have right now. It's called Dawn of the Cold War by John P. Carlin.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much talks about the current affairs, or the affairs that was happening with cyber threats and everything. You know, pretty much he stated that the future wars are going to be fought, and the modern wars that we're fighting as of right now are going to be fought in cyber warfare. You know, taking control of a whole network, or taking control of a whole technically system. You could pretty much control a whole nation. You see how every country is starting to move there's like important stuff into like clouds and stuff like that, or they're starting to automate technology or automate machines. And if you control a machine, they recently did this as well. I think it was a year ago or so, where I don't recall, but it was over the news, where they controlled I think it was like a water supply or something that had to do with like providing resources to a specific area, and they had control over it, and they destroyed the whole thing, causing like major, you know, resources laws and stuff like that. And of course, if I haven't read the book, but technically like what war is all about, you know, is like you don't let your enemy have anything at the end. In order to win the war, they can't have nothing or something like that. I don't know how to express it, but pretty much that's how the new modern world war is going to be fought. Cyber warfare. Everything is being transformed or being changed into technology. So, you know.
I think technology is advancing at a rate that even we as humans cannot adapt to, and it's terrifying, especially when you say these things, how I can literally Google my name or Google my address, and literally information about me can pop up, and anybody can do this. It's yikes, bro. Yee. Because I always bring, every time I go on a walk, I always bring my phone in and I listen to podcasts and things of the sort. But I never really thought of it in a way that it's a bug, or it's a way that the government or any company that the phone is affiliated with, or the app that I'm using is affiliated with, can literally spy on me and listen in on what I'm saying. And literally, I never thought of it, because I thought that Google was only activated when you say, "Hey Google." It literally turned on. Hold up. that it would only activate once you say those words, but I never really thought about. I never really thought about why is it only activated when you say, "Hey Google." How does it know that you're saying? How does it know that you're saying, "Hey Google"? I never thought about it. I never thought about it like that. And now that having watched The Social Dilemma and having listened to whatever it is that we both are talking about, it's, oh my goodness,
if you really want to know more about this and how specifically our government infiltrated other governments and not even that. It was pretty much they didn't care about other governments. Yes, they were having their surveillance and everything, but pretty much all of the network traffic that was being monitorized was inside the United States. And this is something that I'm writing in my paper because there's pretty much two laws that play an important factor in this. One is called the FISA Act, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Pretty much, the government has access to collect foreign intelligence information, to suspect of espionage and terrorism. After the 9/11 attacks, you see how a new act was put, the Patriot Act, which pretty much this was in 2001, which pretty much stated that if there's any speculation of terrorism, that they're going to use their tools to tap into your conversations and stuff like that in a legal way. Our Fourth Amendment, it's the fourth or the fifth, pretty much states that the government doesn't have legal right to search your belongings without having the actual legal right. But pretty much what the government did was they found a loophole, or they created a loophole to the point where they could do it secretly without you knowing.
Is the government doing that, or are these companies doing that? Because the
government is doing it.
Because
although the companies, I don't know about that.
Because it's prevalent now. Those companies are going into lawsuits where they can't spy on people. They cannot sell these datas to other companies because it's literally our privacy that they're selling. And when you said that the government is also doing this, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm with all the media ongoings and the BS that is prevalent in social media and on the internet, I don't even know anymore, to the point where I'm just gonna mind my own business, bro.
If you really want to know about how we know this information, you see, of course, the government is not going to tell us, oh, we're spying on you. Of course, we're going to feel uneasy and there's going to be panic. But the whole reason why we know this is because of an American whistleblower, Edward Snowden. Snowden. You know this guy. Yes. Yeah. There's documentaries, there's podcasts, there's movies about him and everything. When I first saw the movie, I was like, the documentary movie, I was like, this is kind of interesting. I kind of got motivated.
What's it called?
To learn. Just Snowden.
Oh, Snowden, I got you.
The 2016 version, not Citizen 4 or something like that. Because honestly, Citizen 4 was it was interesting, but I kind of got bored of it. But the Snowden, the 2016 movie, it pretty much explains in a broad variety, and you really don't need any background history of technology or something like that to understand it, because it's happened for years. It's like, I guess you could say, for years there's always spies, there's always been I guess throughout history, people will send spies to look over to get information. There's always stories about it. Now, to find that all of your information, after Snowden told us all of our information is being stored in one main big database, everything is there, and how if they speculate you and you have a conversation, let's say they speculate me for what I'm doing. As of right now, you and I are having a conversation.
Yeah.
And they're also going to speculate you. Let's say you also have a conversation with someone who's far away in, let's say, in California. They're going to now monitor him. And then so forth, from him to another person to another person.
I see.
It creates a whole network. And inevitably, they find nothing. But sometimes they do find stuff, and that's how they technically have access. This is why there's been
I think that in a way that's a preventative measure, because especially after the ongoings of 9/11. Yeah, definitely.
That was the whole purpose of the whole act. However, of course, people are not just they're gonna find loopholes around, to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been, I guess, many cases where, and this is the reason why I'm very afraid of dox. Like, if people dox me,
What is
they can
that?
pretty much manipulate. Okay, doxing as the action, and where they get as much information as possible of you. They find it on the web and everything. They find where you live, your social security, your bank accounts and stuff like that. They have access to all of your information, all of your accounts and everything. They can either tamper with it, they can control it, they control your life. They can open like social security, mortgages and stuff like that using your social security, or they can post it online and everybody would know. And I'm afraid of that because if they have that information, pretty much everybody else can control your life.
Jeez.
Yeah. And it's something that the book that I just mentioned, the Code of the Dawn of the Cold War, some shit like that. They talk a lot about how there's been, pretty much the main problem, the main cyber warfare countries that we have is Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea. Those are the four main, pretty much dangers as of right now. There's other countries, of course, but four main are those four, and not so many people are scared of like, oh, we need more jobs for cybersecurity, because there's been times where companies, websites have been hacked and thousands of data has been stolen, millions. This is where my mentor kind of showed me. There's also these forums like, 4chan and stuff like that, where they actually put a big database, or they pull a whole database filled with social security information, stuff like that. And you can download that if you pay with Bitcoin or stuff like that. And it'll be all anonymous. And to think that if they hack like that specific website that you have correlation with, you won't know your information's there until they tell you. And as a pen tester and who works in cybersecurity, you learn how to do it and how it works in order, because you need to combat that. How are you going to combat that? You learn different programs, you find vulnerabilities and stuff like that. Like, as of right now, like, I'm using a whole Hulu.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like stuff like this that you could literally, with a touch of a button, your whole life could be ruined. You could ruin someone else's life just like that.
Anyways. I did want to talk about my entire problem with reading books, because you had mentioned reading books, and I know that you kind of started with self-help, didn't you? Yeah, I did too, but it comes to a certain point where it's just like everything is just common sense now. And
honestly,
I can't. I am diverging myself from reading self-help books. Although to a certain extent, I'm still kind of reading self-help books. Right now I'm reading The Rational Male, and the last self-help book I read was Un-F Yourself by Gary Bishop Johnson, or Gary John Bishop. I forgot his name, but it's somewhere Gary Bishop. And it was all affirmations. Like, it gives you like 7 chapters and 7 affirmations, like, I am relentless, and I am not my thoughts, I am what I do, and I embrace the uncertainty, and all these affirmations. And they're just like
pretty much the law of attraction, something
like that. And now it came to the point where I have no interest in rah BS, where it's just like, you need to tell yourself this, you need to have this inner voice within you. It's David Goggins.
Don't think I know.
He wrote the book Can't Hurt Me, and I was reading his book. I was watching his podcast with Joe Rogan, and right off the bat I was so unimpressed, because I'm impressed with what he has done. He went from this really fat, obese guy to this, I think he was like a Navy SEAL or a Marine, who was just like ripped body, and he's like a marathon runner, and he's done all these amazing accomplishments, but the way he was talking to Joe about how he did these things, just like, I wanted to have calluses on my mind, I wanted to accomplish this, it's because like, oh, my body doesn't want to do this, that's telling me something. It's like there's this inner voice within me that's saying these things. It's just like, come on, bro, you cannot possibly believe that there's an inner voice within you that's telling you that you should improve. To me, you gotta give me practical things. Like, you gotta give me evidence that this is happening. Like, give me studies, give me significant and empirical evidences. This is why I like people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, because not only do they tell you that you should definitely do this because this is what you're supposed to do, but they give statistics as to this is what happens when you do these things. Like 9 out of 10, this is like fabricated data, but like this is just like on top of my head, be like 9 out of 10 people who graduate college, they are the ones who, you know, succeed in life and stuff like that. And you know how people have sacrifices and stuff like that, right? Of course, you have to sacrifice to get what you want, and you have to delay gratification. And not only do they tell you that, because now it's common sense for us, you know the marshmallow test, where these social scientists, they basically tortured young kids, where they set them in the room and then they gave them a marshmallow in front of them on a table maybe, and then they were just like, you can have this marshmallow right now, or wait 10 minutes and you'll get 2 marshmallows. And so the idea, and then
wasn't it like an ad or something, or it became a meme?
I think it became a meme too, but it was like a real study done, I think it was like in the 80s or the 70s, whenever, in the 20th century. And they tracked the lives of the kids who ate the marshmallows right off the bat, and the people or the kids who had delayed gratification. And lo and behold, the kids who delayed their gratifications to get that 2 metaphysical marshmallows in the future, they tracked the social scientists who did the experiment, they tracked their lives, and lo and behold, they were more successful, objectively speaking, than the ones who didn't wait for the 2 marshmallows and had just ate and gobbled up the marshmallows to begin with. So these are like, sure, it's common sense, but when you go deeper into the psychology behind it, that's where it piques my interest. It's just like, so that's why I don't believe in this rah nonsense, bro.
I mean, it's both yes and a no for me as well. Like, yes, sometimes it's pretty much like a fairy tale. It's obnoxious in a way, where it's like, yes, something is telling me at the back of the head, but at the same time, there's been cases where I'm like, I have this gut feeling, or I have like this shiver down my spine, or something like, something is like there saying like, yeah, you go there, you're gonna fuck up, or go there, and a specific something is gonna change your life forever. Like, there's been times where I'm like, should I believe this or not? You know, it's like it's a very hypocritical part of myself, but like, it's a yes or no. Like, yes, I would follow based on the science and the statistic, because numbers are numbers and they represent a lot of things.
I'm not saying that I don't believe in spiritual things. Of course, I'm an outspoken Christian. Like, everybody who knows me knows I'm a Christian. But
I didn't know that.
Oh, well, now you do. But in terms of like these rah-rah things, you know what I'm saying when I say rah-rah, right?
Yeah.
It's I think it's an axiom now when I say rah-rah, spiritual nonsense, common sense. It's like, it's common sense. You tell me this, right? But like, why? And then you just stop right there. Just like, you gotta tell me something behind that. And this is why I like really diving into the Bible. It's like, it's not dogma. You gotta think about it deeply to know what is going on within these things. And not only that, you cannot take a verse within itself. You gotta,
there has to be context behind it.
You gotta read the entire thing. You gotta read the entire book, or sometimes you gotta refer to a different book, right? Especially with the whole when Jesus was towards crucifixion, he bellowed the words, Eli Eli lama sabachthani, or in other words, God, God, why have you forsaken me? You cannot just say that, oh, he said, Christ has said this, therefore this. No, 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 no. You gotta read the entire New Testament, and you gotta know all these things, right? Especially with, I'll give you another example. It was in the book of Job, where during you know how Job was punished, and well, no, he wasn't punished, but he was stricken with all of these malevolent circumstances, and then his friend, quote unquote, Eliphaz, was saying in one verse, and he said, art thou going to continue in the old path where evil people once resided? And our program, well, the church's program called The Old Path, our adversaries in faith, adversaries in faith were using that against us. It was like, oh, this verse in the Bible had said that the old path is where evil people once resided. But if you read that entire chapter, that was literally said, well, if you read the entire book, I'm not sure if it's in the same chapter, but read the entire book of Job, and you would see that that phrase was spoken by Eliphaz. And by the end of the book, or by the preceding chapters, you would see that God literally hated that man. God's anger was literally boiling towards Eliphaz, which means that he is an enemy of God. And that would mean that his phrases were literally the opposite of good, which means that the old path wasn't a path which was walked by evil people, but rather good. And it also implies that since Eliphaz had used the phrase proceed in the old path, Job is also in the old path.
I mean, pretty much everything is based on context, because there's been a lot of, even in modern day world, where there's been a lot of creators where they've been canceled and stuff like that, just because of things said out of context. You know, that's like ever happened with PewDiePie, you know?
I never really understood what happened with that one. I think he was, I don't know, he went under fire some time ago. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't even know. There's been even more content creators where they be saying things, and then editors be putting it together, and it sounds out of context, and it makes it look like, you know, they're the bad guys. I mean, yes, some content creators are bad. Like, I don't even know if you know this YouTuber Minilad or some shit like that.
Oh no, I'm not sure about them.
Yeah, but apparently there was a lot of exposure that he was a pedophile.
Oh jeez.
He talked back to his friends and stuff like that. And it's just very bad. And I was like, yikes! And then just everything is just based on context. Like, yes, there's bad people. Yes, there's good people. It just depends on, you know,
the context.
I guess it goes back to what we previously said. It goes back basically on how we interpret it as well, because with the context, with everything, people will only listen to what they want to hear, you know. Even with the data that's there, you know, they don't want to listen because that's all they know.
Yeah, it kind of goes against what their initial notion was, which is definitely hard to detach from. And that's why I like people who are definitely investigating both sides of the party. Like, I'm a real admirer of Jordan Peterson, Brother Eli Soriano, like the preacher of my church, and Ben Shapiro, because these people don't just stay Republican. These people don't just stay in their common or in their general faith or in their general notions. Like, you gotta investigate both sides of the spectrum, because if you don't, you're just staying in your own bubble, and you're not doing anyone any good with your beliefs if you're just staying in one side of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's a big ass paradox, honestly, because it's more of a selfish intent rather than, you know, trying to go out the world. Because pretty much how everyone was raised was because of people who believed they were right, and with that right, it affects the future generations, and then it's a whole domino effect and everything. And in the end, everybody loses, because for generations, we've literally just been selfish for ourselves.
Well, we just did an hour. Mr. Wesley, it's been a great honor talking with you about this. I don't even know, this rabbit hole that we just went through.
How many topics was that?
I don't know, like 10, 20,000?
I don't even
But anyways, listeners, I don't even know what to call these people. I'm sorry.
Yikes.
But thank you for listening. Thanks, Wesley, for hopping on and
Thank you.
conversating with me. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
I hope you can forgive me.
The night is young, my love. You call me to your arms.
But I